Let us today solve a very famous machine coding round of interview problem, that is autocomplete search bar. This is a very famous problem, and if you are a front-end developer preparing for interviews, this should be the problem. You should definitely try it out, practice before you go to your interview. Okay, because this is a very famous problem. It has recently been asked in Ola as well as in Amazon front-end interviews. So please prepare it. I would highly request you to, whenever you are preparing this problem, keep a timer in front of you. Maybe start a stopwatch or a timer and then solve it with the time, right? It's an interesting problem to solve. So today I'm going to solve this just like how I would have solved it in an interview round myself. I have not practiced this question before. I will solve directly in front of you right now. And just try to see my thought process, okay? What I am trying to think and how I am approaching this problem. That will help you in your interviews rather than just seeing the code or something, right? So code is not the main thing. Obviously, code is the thing, but then I want to understand the thought process, how I am solving it. That would be more beneficial to you if you are preparing for machine coding round of interviews. So let's just get started. First of all, let me explain you the problem, then we will come on to the solution part. So autocomplete search bar, it is kind of like building a Google search kind of a thing. Everybody knows about this famous Google search. So basically we want an input box kind of a thing. Suppose if I am searching for something over here, suppose if I'm searching for iPhone, right? Or iPhone 17 or something, right? So it auto completes and it gives you suggestions, right? So all this comes via an API call. Suppose if I am writing iPhone 17, so it made an API call and the API call returned me the results and we show it over here, right? So basically this is how this component should look like, right? And you have a lot of other things, right? This looks very easy, but it is quite challenging and complex problem. If you have to take it to some advanced level, so some interviewers can grill you a lot. Okay, I will also tell you how the interviewers can grill you and take this problem to advanced level and can add a lot more complexity to your problem statement. That can come in optimizing this problem. Okay, so this looks very easy, that okay, it's very easy, I can develop all of it, right? But then suppose if you have to optimize this code for this, right? So basically you will have to implement caching, you'll have to implement debouncing. There are so many add-ons that we can add to this problem statement so that it becomes tough for the candidates to solve in 1 hour of the interview round. Okay, so this problem can be easy and complex according to how interviewer wants to grill you, right? So let's get started and slowly build this kind of a autocomplete search bar, and just understand how I am solving it. Okay, so let's build it. First of all, let me tell you, okay, we will need an API, right? The first question, I repeat this in every video I make, that the first question you should definitely ask your interviewer is, where will we get data from? And spend 5 minutes in the starting of the interview to understand what interviewer is expecting from you. Okay, so understand it, right? So ask good questions to the interviewer. So first thing, where will we get data from? So interviewer can give you data dump, or he can also give you a API that you have to call when you are searching for something. Suppose the user is typing in IPHONE, so you make an API call with that input keyword and then it returns you the result, right? So there can be both the things, right, that the interviewer can ask. Today in this video, I am using this dummy JSON API, right? In the dummyjson.com, this is a very famous mock APIs that you can get. So over here, there is a API for search recipes. Okay, so I'm using this search recipe APIs. It gives you the recipes. Okay, you can search the recipes using this API. So basically, where is it? Yep. Here is this API. Okay, so let me just copy this API and let me show you how it looks. Okay, so this is the API that we are going to use. So if you search, this is the query parameter. If you search for Margarita either, so what it will happen is it will search, give you the search results. Suppose if I search for mango, right? If I search for mango, so it will give me all the recipes with mango in it. See, mango salsa chicken, and then it says mango lassi, and then it says mango avocado salsa, right? So basically you can write any query over here. Suppose if you write MA and you hit enter, so it will give you all the recipes with this keyword, right? This is the query param. So we are going to use this API, and we are going to show results over here, right, on the web page. So let's just start building it quickly. Understand the thought process. What I will do is I will break my problem into smaller pieces and then I will solve it. Okay. So first thing that is coming to my mind is, let me make the API call, get the data, show it onto the page. Okay. So make an API call, get the data and show it onto the page. That is what I want to do. First of all, let me build a input box first of all, right? Input box and the container where I will show the search result or something, right? Let's create an input box. So first thing, let me create a div over here. So we have a div over here, right? In this div, let me create an input box. So I have an input, right? Input box. So here is my input box, okay? So this is the input box. Over here, I'll type something. So let me first of all give it some CSS to make it look better. Let's say search input, okay? Search input, okay? This is the class name. Let me give it some CSS to make it look a little better. Okay, so when you are giving an interview, if first focus upon building the functionality, not on CSS, okay? Write bare minimum CSS. That is okay, right? So let us write bare minimum CSS. Let us just give it some width, and always make sure that you are practicing to write the CSS, plain CSS, not Tailwind, not something like that, because in interview generally you are asked to code on a code sandbox or on some other place or some other environment. It's not your VS code. It does not have autocomplete or something. So be familiar with writing code from scratch. Be familiar with writing pure CSS, not Tailwind, no Bootstrap classes or Material UI or something, right? It won't be available in your interviews most of the time. It can be available sometimes, but not always, okay? So I am just adding basic CSS, okay? So I am making the width as 500 to make it look a little better. And then let me add some padding to make it look a little larger or something, right? Let me give it 10px. How does it look? 10px looks a little large, right? So let me give it 5px, okay? 5px works. Cool. So this is my search bar. Now let's go and let me make an API call, fetch data and show it as suggestions, okay? So how will I do that? First of all, okay, let me fetch data. How will you fetch data? You create a function. I am creating a function fetch data. This will fetch the data for me, right? For the particular query, okay? For that particular input query, search query that I am writing inside, okay? So how will you fetch the data? Let me just add data is equals to, and then I can use async await to make the fetch call. So let me make the function async first of all, and then I will use await fetch, okay? So I'm using fetch, and over here I will write an API call, right? So this is the API call. Okay, so this is the API call, and here we have results, right? This is the query. So I have written MA over here. Let me just, remove everything, right? Let me just not have anything over here, right? Empty search bar. So it will give me all the recipes. It is giving me all the recipes. If I want to search for a particular recipe, then I'll have to enter something, okay? So I'm not putting anything over here right now. Making API call, getting the data. Now let me convert this data to JSON. How would you do that? Again, it will return a promise to us, right? Await data.json. Okay, so this will return a promise, and I will get this JSON over here in JSON variable. Cool. Now I want to show this JSON data, right? This JSON data, once the API call has been made, this JSON data will contain this data, right? This will be data, and JSON.recipes will contain this array of recipes. Okay, so JSON.recipes will contain the array of recipes. Okay, so now I want to show these recipes over here, right? Over here. So how would I do that? For that, I will need a for that I will need a variable, state variable. Let's create a state variable. Okay, because to show some data, we need a state variable, right? And this state variable will contain recipes. Okay, so let's say recipes, and I can say set recipes. Okay, or instead of recipes, let's call it as results. Okay, search results, 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 results. Okay, because recipes doesn't sound good as a variable name. Okay, so it's up to you, whatever you want to write. So I'm saying results and use state results. Okay, and then I will need a state variable for input also, right? So search text basically. So search input, or let me call this as input only, set input, right? And then I will use state over here once again, and this is empty, right? Now this input is tied to my input box. Okay, so let me just tie it up. So the value should be my input, and on change should be equal to set, sorry, my bad. It should have a callback function, and I would say set input to my e.target.value, e.target, and e will come from here. This is the e event, e.target.value, e.target.value. Cool. So this is my input box. It has been tied to this input state variable. Now whatever results I will get, I will just store those results in my results array over here, right? So I will do my set results over here. So whatever JSON results that I have got, I will just push those results into this results, right? So set results will be JSON.recipes. Okay, so I have to do JSON.recipes. Don't forget to do this. JSON.recipes. I am adding a question mark. You know why, right? If you don't, just Google it. You would understand it. Now, I'll have to call this function. When do I call this function? Tell me. I will have to call this function whenever my input box data changes. Okay, so how do you write that? You have to be sure about it, right? So I will use my use effect. In my use effect, I will have my callback function over here, right? This is my callback function, and the second parameter over here will be my dependency array, right? So in my dependency array, I will write input. So whenever, if you will keep it empty, it will be called one time after the component has been rendered, right? I have explained use effect beautifully in Namaste React. If you are not a part of Namaste React course, then I would suggest you go in Namaste React course. I have dived deep into each and everything that I am teaching you, right? Use state, use effect, how to return JSON, JSX, advanced topics, how do you write code in a modular fashion, scalable fashion. We have built a very large scale project also in Namaste React. So do check it out if you are not very good at React, okay? So if you want to dive deep into React, how React works behind the scenes, how the internal architecture of React works, how virtual DOM works, how diff algorithm works, everything I have covered. We have also covered Redux into that course. So please check it out if you haven't already. It's a very nice course, trust me, right? You would love it. So try that out. But what I am trying to say is, if you keep this dependency array empty, right? If you keep this empty, your use effect callback function will be called just once. But if you write input over here, so this function will be called every time my input changes. Okay, so every time my input box, if I change something into the input box, this function will be called. And whenever this function will be called, I want to fetch my data, right? Whenever input changes, whenever anything changes in this input box, I want to fetch the data, get the search results, and show it onto my web page. Okay, now we have got these results, and now I have to show these results over here down below, right? Over here, I need to show these results just like Google shows it, right? Like this. So similarly, I'll show it over here, right? So how do I show it? Let me just create another div. Maybe I can create a ULLI also, right? But I'm creating a div. You can create ULLI also, right? It's up to you. And then I can create a span tags over here, right? To show the rows. For each, I have to show row for each result, right? So now I'll do results.map, right? Results.map. And what I'll do is for each result, I'll have to add a span tag, right? For each result item. So let me add it. For each result item, I will return a span tag. Make sure you add key over here, right? Because key is very important. Every time, all these small things I have covered in, Namaste React course, but you should never forget to add key over here. Whenever you are using map, key should be there. Why? To make React work smarter. Okay. So all the Namaste React folks would know it. But again, see, key is empty over here. Now the key should be a unique value over here, and here I will show the results. So if you will look at the data, if you will say key result dot name and result dot id. So id can be the key. Name is something that I need to show. Okay. So let us just show it. I would say result dot name is something that I want to show, and key is result dot id. Okay. So if I save it, so now it will show me results over here, right? So if it makes an API call, okay, it is making an API call. See this, and I have got these results over here, right? Now I want to make it look a little better. Okay, so first of all, let me give it some CSS, class name, and then I can say results container. Okay, so I can call this as results container. Okay, and for each result I can give it a class name as result. Okay, result. Now let me give it some CSS to make it look a little better. For the container, let me just give it width. So let's make the width of the container exactly like my input box, right? The input box width is 500 because they should go in sync, otherwise they will look out of place. Okay, so always make sure that your width is correct. Now width is correct. Now they are not aligning in center, so basically I'll have to do margin auto, right? This should work. Cool, margin auto works. Now let me give it border to make it look better. 1px solid black or something. Solid black. How does it look? Cool. So now do you see? Now it looks better, right? Let me also give it a padding of 5px. Cool. Now this looks better. Now I want to show each of these result in a single line, right? So how do I show it? Let me just go to result. Let me just write some CSS for result. So to show them on each and every line, how do I make it? So first of all, I'll have to do display block because that's a span. So display block so that it comes in each and every line. Cool. Now I'll have to left align things, right? So in the container, let me just text align left. Will it work? Cool. This works, right? Now let me give padding to each and every result, right? So padding to each and every result, maybe I can give it 5px. Cool. This looks better, isn't it? This looks better, isn't it? This looks good, right? But it is coming. This list is going very long. This list is going very long. And let me not give it 5px. Let me give it 3px. Cool. Now this looks better, right? Or let me give it 5px if that looks better. Cool. Now what we'll do is maybe I can just now let us also adjust the height of this container, right? So these result container height, let us just fix the height. Maybe I can say height is equals to 500px, right? How does it look? Cool. This looks better, right? This much height is better. Because see, the height should be fixed, right? Otherwise it will create a problem. So height is 500px. In fact, I would say, and then I would say overflow y. Overflow y scroll, right? So it will scroll horizontally. Cool. Now it looks better, right? So I have my input results and my results will show up like this. How cool is that? Isn't it cool? Right? It's exactly working like this, but here I don't have a scroll or something, right? I don't know. We don't have a scroll. So our results have scroll also. That's okay, right? Now on hover of this, see, if I am hovering on this, it is changing the background color. How do you make that? See, all these small features the interviewer can ask you to develop. Suppose if I am hovering onto this row, so each and every row is getting highlighted. The background color is changing over here, right? So how can I make that happen? Very easy, right? Very easy. How? Do you know that? Result hover, right? These are small things that interviewer ask you to test your CSS knowledge, right? So I'll have to give it a background color, and I can give it gray or beige or something. Let me just give it something, right? Antique white, no, beige. How does it look? See this. Do you see? Now, and I can also give it a cursor pointer to make it look clickable or something, right? I can give it cursor pointer. So these are things, CSS things that you can do, right? So now it looks much better, right? Now it looks much better from the CSS standpoint. Cool. So now this result is not coming according to my search text over here, right? So let us just, make this result come according to my search text. Okay. So over here, query, right? So this is my query. So over here, this query should be input, right? This query should be input. So if I write input over here, so according to the input, this query will work. Okay. This query will work according to the input. So suppose if I am writing over here, MANGO, mango. So it is just giving me mango filtered queries. Isn't it amazing, my dear friends? We have almost made the search bar, but there are so many things that we need to improve over here, even right now, right? So let's improve it, but this is a good sign. Do you understand my thought process? So the first thing that I did was, I added my input box, I called the API, I wrote the logic of fetching the data, then I showed the result, right? I have shown the result and I have added some CSS. Now this looks bad, right? Because I have fixed the height of this results, right? So this result container, the height should not always be 500. I would say max height should be 500, right? If I say max height should be 500, okay? So if the results are so many, so the height became 500, but if results are less, mango, right, then only 3 results, right? Now it looks much better, right? So there are improvements that you can make, okay? But let us just first of all test it up. Now you see, now the problem with this autocomplete is that it is not hiding this, right? Now if I am clicking outside, it should hide these results, isn't it? See. If I am clicking outside, it should hide these results. When I focus on this input box, it should show the result. If I click outside, it should hide the results. How will I make this functionality? So this can be one more enhancement to your question. And suppose if you have developed till here, right, in your interview, the interviewer can say, Akshay, now develop a thing that if I click outside, it should hide. If I click inside, it should show up the results. Okay. So how do you develop this kind of a functionality? Very easy, right? You should know how to handle events. The events are blur and focus, on focus and on blur. Okay. So I have to hide and show according to on focus and on blur. So how would I do that? I'll create a state variable again, because how will I track whether I want to show or hide, right? So for that, I'll need a Boolean variable. So let's create a state variable. Let's call this as useState, all right, useState. And then initially I would say I want to hide it, right? And I will say show results, right? Show results, comma, set show results. Show results. RESULTS, set show results. Now initially this is false. Now I want to show my results. I want to, and this whole container, right? This results container will only be visible if my show results and okay. If my show results is true, then only show this, right? Now it will not show. Why? Because show results is always false. When will I make it true? I will make it true only if I focus on this input box, right? So if I focus on this input box, on focus, right? On focus. So I will make it, on focus, call a function and then set show results to true, right? So if I focus on my input box, it should show the result. If I on blur, right? On blur, I want to hide these results, right? So basically I want to hide these results. How will I hide these results? I will just pass in false over here, my dear friends. Cool. So now I have passed in true and I have passed in false. So if I click over here, see this. Do you see? If I click outside, it went away. If I click inside, it shows the results. If I click outside, it went away. If I write something MANGO over here, it shows me the result. If I click outside, it goes away. Right? Cool functionality. So this is one more feature enhancement into our, into our code, which we can do. Right? Now, what else can we do? Right? What else should we do? Yes. So now one more feature enhancement could be to improve the performance of this component. This component is very pathetic, right? The performance is very bad of this component. Why the performance is bad? Right? The interviewer can ask you, Akshay, tell me, how can you improve the performance of this input box? So you would say, we will use debouncing, the concept of debouncing into this input box, right? So have you heard of debouncing? If you have not already, right? I have explained this in detail in Namaste React again, but if you don't know, right, if you have not watched it, just read about it on Google, right? What is debouncing? But let me just quickly explain you once again, right? Let me first of all tell you the problem that this input box has, then I will solve it using debouncing, okay? So let me just, do inspect element over here. So now let us, if I go over here, right? If I go over here, now, whenever you make an API call, right? Let me just do a console log over here to show you the problem, right? So API call, and let me write the input, right? Input box, right? So API call and input search text. So if I'm writing over here, if I write MANGO, right? If I'm writing MANGO, do you see how many API calls were made? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you will go to network tab, it is making so many API calls. MANGO. And if I start writing something, suppose if I want to search for mango lassi, right? I want to search for full thing. So I will write MANGO, mango, LASSI, lassi. So many API calls has been made. MANGO space LASSI. It has made 11 API calls in just one search. Think about this component being used by thousands of users. So it will make lakhs of API calls, isn't it? Just a small thing. How can I improve this? That is where debouncing comes into picture. So don't make an API call on every keystroke, rather than just make an API call when the user stops typing, right? So this is what is known as debouncing. So suppose, see, whenever I want to search for mango, so how I will write MANGO. So when I write MANGO and I take a pause while typing, suppose I am typing tick, 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 and I take a pause, then I should see my results, then make an API call and then result, right? So if I am continuously typing something, don't make API call on every keystroke. This is handled by debouncing. How do you add that? So basically you have to find out the difference between the two keystrokes. If the difference between the two keystrokes is greater than 300 millisecond or 200 milliseconds, then only make an API call. If you don't understand what is debouncing, I will tell you that, okay, go to my YouTube channel, right? My YouTube channel. Over there, I have a video on debouncing and throttling. Those are very important video available for free on my YouTube channel. Watch it first, right? Watch it first. Come back and watch this video from here once again. But watch that up. You would understand the concept of debouncing. I'm not explaining you in detail because otherwise this video will become very long. And this is not the purpose of this video, but I would tell you how you can implement debouncing in React right now, okay? So how will you implement? First of all, what I'll do it, I will not make API call. I will not fetch data on every single keystroke, okay? So what I'll do is, whenever my input box changes, I will start a timer. And the timer will be of set timeout, and this timer will be of 300 milliseconds, okay? So let me write it up, then only I will explain you. right? Afterwards, I'll explain you. So what I will do is, I will call my fetch data after 300 milliseconds. Suppose if I pressed a keystroke over here, suppose if I'm writing M over here. So after 300 milliseconds, it will fetch the data. Okay, it will fetch the data after 300 milliseconds. So see, if I write MANGO, so it will fetch the data after 300 milliseconds. It took a slight delay, right? Now, if my input box changes before my 300 milliseconds delay, so I will clear my timer. How do you clear it? So there is a return that you can pass in this use effect. So people who are good in React, who know React very well, who know how to use effect very well, would know that if you will return something from here, this function, whatever function you will return from here, this function will be called when the component unmounts. Okay, so this is a concept in React. That is what I say. Most of the React developers don't know about this concept. Lot of them. If I, whenever I take interviews and I ask candidates these questions, right? What is this meaning of this React? When it will be called? They are not able to answer all of it. Just because they have just the superficial or very basic knowledge of React. If you want to dive deep into React, if you have learned React in a proper structured way, then you would know all of these things, right? So you should know as a React developer that this return, this callback function will only be called when the component is unmounting. Okay, so here I will clear my timeout, right? I will clear my timeout and I will just clear this timer. Okay, so now what will happen is, between the two keystroke, suppose if there is a delay of 300 milliseconds, then only API call will be made. Otherwise, this timer will be cleared and this function fetch data will not be called. Okay, this function fetch data will not be called. Let me just show it to you, right? So if I will, console log, now I'll show you a amazing thing. Okay, so I will show you amazing thing. This API call has been made now, right? Now, if I write MANGO, so only one API call has been made. See, now if I type slow, suppose if I am typing very slow, if I'm typing M, so it made an API call, one API call. If I write A, it made one another API call. Suppose if I'm typing fast, NGO, now my API call is only made once I have stopped typing, right? Once I have stopped typing. This is a very efficient way of handling it. Earlier, if I typed mango lassi, right? If I was typing mango lassi, it was taking 11 API calls. Now let us see how many API calls does it take. If I write MANGO, mango, LASSI. If I write mango lassi, see, it has made only one API call once I have finished writing. Okay, so suppose if somebody is a slow typer, if they write something like this, MANGO space LASSI, right? It has still made so many API calls, right? It has still made so many API calls, so you can optimize it by increasing it, right? But if somebody is a slow typer, then it will make so many API calls. But if somebody is typing in a decent speed, I was typing very slow. If somebody is typing in a decent speed, MANGO and LASSI, right? So still better, isn't it? So what I'm trying to say, these are ways of optimizing it, right? And you can change this value of 300 to 500, and this will handle for slow typers also. Okay, if somebody is typing like this, MANGO LASSI, right? So it still made like 4 API calls only for slow typers also. But if you will keep it, you'll have to hit a sweet spot over here for this number. If you make it 500, it will lag a little, right? If you make it 100, then it will not reduce the number of API calls. So personally, I would say 300, 400 is a very sweet spot and it's a very good place to be in, right? So I am writing 300. And let me tell you, when you will be coding this, your interviewer can also ask you and can have a conversation with you. Why are you writing 300? And suppose a lot of developers forget to write this, right? I have seen a lot of developers make this blunder. They will forget to write this return statement. If you forget to write this return statement, that's not an optimized solution. It will not even work. It's a very bad solution. So never ever forget to write this return statement if you are doing debouncing over here. Cool. So this is one optimization that your interviewer can ask you to do. There can be more optimizations that your interviewer can ask you to do in the same problem. Because see, I have asked this question as an interviewer, so I know what more optimization can be asked, right? One more optimization that the interviewer can ask you is that still it is not a very optimized solution. So let me tell you what, right? See, if I'm writing MANGO and if I write LASSI, mango lassi, right? If suppose I am going back, if I am pressing the backspace and if I am going like this, right? So see, if I am going like this, I am clearing my input box. See, still it is making API call for mango lassi. See, it has made API call for mango like 4 times. Was it really required? Was it really required? Tell me, my dear friends. So, another optimization that your interviewer can ask you to do is to cache the results, right? So, ideally, your interviewer will not even say the word cache. He will say that, Akshay, you are writing mango over here and it has made 4 API calls for mango. Do you think it's a good solution? And I would say, no, it is not, right? So ideally, this mango keyword should be cached. The results should be cached, and don't make a API call if you see the same result, right? Suppose if I am writing MANGO, so don't make another API call if the results for mango keyword is already available. Why to make an API call? Doesn't make sense, isn't it? So that is what we will implement using a cache. Let me just show it to you, right? How do you implement a cache? See, I am going a little faster over here. When you will be in the interview scenario, you will be coding a little slow, right? You will not be coding at this pace. I am in practice. I almost daily write React code, right? I am fluent in React, so I am able to do it properly. But when you will be there in the interview, you will panic. You will get stuck into bugs. There will be so many things you will get stuck into. Trust me, I have seen candidates messing up with debouncing a lot. So it can take time. So, and in machine coding round of interview, you are racing against time. You have to you should be fluent with your coding. Okay, so what I am trying to say is the only solution to that is practice. I have seen a lot of candidates failing in basic questions also. In the interview, you will not get autocomplete. Your code will not be completed automatically in VS Code. You use GitHub Copilot or something. It will not happen. The CSS is not Tailwind. You have to write plain CSS. Okay. So be fluent with writing code. After this video, go start a timer and practice this question. Try to code it in 45 minutes, not more than 45 minutes. Because in interview, the interview is for 1 hour. 5 minutes in the starting are gone in just discussions about the question and everything. 5 minutes more, you can think about, the interviewer will ask you questions about your resume or something. And towards the end, 5 minutes is again gone, something like that. Only 40-45 minutes is what you get to actually code the problem statement. So make sure you are using the time efficiently and you are well versed with coding. Right? So you are seeing me coding live. This is the problem which I did not solve earlier. I am solving it right in front of you, but I am not getting a lot of errors because I am fluent with it, right? And even if I might get some errors now, right? But I can solve it quickly. So you should be this good, right? You should know exactly what you are writing. You should know exactly what will happen if I return over here. What will happen if I use effect? What will happen? What should I write in this dependency array? You should be good with React. If your React fundamentals are good, nobody can defeat you. No interviewer. Whatever may come, you will code it, right? So this is what I want to say. Now, let's implement caching also. To caching, I will have to implement a cache, right? So how will I develop a cache? There are a lot of ways you can cache things up. You can cache inside local storage. You can cache inside so many other stuff. I am just making a state variable, very basic level of caching. And you can discuss this with your interviewer also. How much do you want to cache? Should I cache in local storage? Do you want to the cache to be persistent the next time user comes onto your app? Then you should use local storage. If you just want the cache to be for that particular session, right, for that particular instance, so you can just use a normal local variable, state variable over here. That is what I'm doing. But talk to your interviewer before you implement anything. Okay, so I'm just using a local cache or a state variable over here to store the cache. Use state, right? Use state over here. Okay, and now what I'll do is I'll cache the results. So my results should be cached in a object. Now this can again be a question that how will you cache the result, right? So how I will cache, let me just tell you. See, everything is there in my head, but let me just explain you, take a moment to explain you. I will have my cache something like this. Suppose if I I have made an API call for Mango, MANGO. So I will add all the results of Mango over here in the keyword, right? If suppose I'm making a call for MAN, right? So I will again have the results cached something like this, right? So all the keywords that I am making an API call to, I will store the result in a key value pair kind of a fashion. That is why I'm using object over here. That will give me O1 complexity of search. Right now here data, now here data structures come into picture. That how will you implement cache? And cache is a pure object. It's kind of like a hash map, right? Key value pairs, right? That's all we need to do. So this is my object. Initially my cache would be empty, right? So that's why it is an empty object. So I have my cache and set cache. Okay, so I have my cache and I have my set cache over here. Let me just drop it down a little, right? This is distracting. Cool. So cache and set cache. Now whenever I make an API call, right? Whenever I have made this API call, this is fetch data, right? I'm making an API call. So what I'll do is whenever I am setting this result, I will also update my cache. Okay. So I will update my cache. How will you update your cache? You will do set cache. Okay. Set cache. Now this is a very important step. Lot of people make mistake. Always, whenever you are updating the cache, this is an object. And this object is not to be replaced. You should not be replacing it with data. You should be appending the data or modifying the data. Okay. So how do you append the data? You have to update it properly. So you have to get the previous cache or the previous state, the current value of the state, previous state. And now I want my previous state to return another object with a copy of my previous state, previous state, and adding the key value pair, right? Now what is the key value pair? The key will be my input. Suppose if I am searching for mango, so the key should be mango. Make sure you put a parenthesis, array bracket over here, because this is a key. This is a key. And then over here you store the results, json.recipes. Okay, this is the data I want to cache. So this is how you update your cache. So suppose if I am writing mango, so the key would be mango and this json.recipes would be the data that I have got from the API. So this is how you update the cache. Okay, now how do you use the cache so that next time mango comes, you don't have to call an API, right? You will not make the API call next time mango comes. How would you do that? Very easy. Whenever you are fetching the data, I will not make an API call, but suppose if I have got my input box, suppose if my input is present in the cache, suppose if my cache of input is present, right? So suppose if my cache of input, right? Suppose if my cache of input is present, right? It is available. So what I'll do is I will just return the data from my cache, right? It's easy, right? So I can just say, just set results from my cache. You don't have to, you don't have to make an API call. So what I'll do, I'll just set results from my cache and I'll just return it, right? I will not let the program go further. Okay. So suppose if I have got the data available in my cache, I will just set the results from my cache and it will show it over here and will not make an API call. This code will not run. This code will not run. If the data is not present in my cache, then do this. Got it? So this is how you implement cache. See, writing code is just like 4 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 lines, but the concept is so strong that it can optimize your code very well. So number of lines does not matter. The concept matters. And you should know how to write it, where to write it. Okay, so that is what I wanted to share. This is how you implement cache. Now, whenever the data is returned from cache, let me just show you the demonstration also. Okay, let us console log. So I would say cache returned, cache returned, 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 and I would say input, right? So cache returned. So now let us see if this works or not. Let us test my application out. So refresh the app, right? I am refreshing the app now. Okay, let me refresh this app. It has reloaded. Remove, right? So now let me clear the console. Now let us just see the behavior now. Okay, so if I am making, now let us make an API call, right? Now let us search for something. Suppose if I am searching for MANGO, right? So I'm returning for mango, and I would say space LASSI, lassi, right? So it is making API call for all these characters, right? For all these characters. But suppose if I am going back to mango, right? See, suppose if I go back to mango, do you see? It is returning from cache also. See, it is returning from cache also. So we made an API call for, I was typing slow, so we made an API call for MAN. We made an API call for mango. We made an API call for mango, lassi, and all that stuff. But when the next time MANGO LA came, so it was returned from cache. Let us just clear it. Let me show you once again. Now I will type fast. Okay, how the API call would look like. Suppose if I am writing MANGO, mango, space LASSI, lassi, right? So it made, okay, I did a typo. Let me just write it once again. Let me clear this console. Sorry, my bad. But I want to show you how it works, right? MANGO, and then I would write LASSI, lassi, right? So it made, see, it made 3 API calls. First for mango, then, it made for mango LASS. I was typing slow, so it did not, it made 3 API calls, right? Now, suppose if I go back to mango, let me hit backspace and go to mango, right? So if I hit go back, so it says cache returned because I was caching everything. Okay, it is returning from cache because, oh my god, let me refresh the page so that, the cache is emptied, because it is already there in cache. But what I'm trying to say is it is optimized one level more, right? So if I write MANGO, it made an API call, right? Suppose if I write space LASSI, lassi. So it made two API calls. Now let me go back to mango. If I'll go back to mango, see, it returned from the cache this time. If I go back, right? If I go back space LASSI, so it again returned from the cache. So this is the importance of caching. First optimization was, I have reduced the number of calls using debouncing. The second optimization is, I am caching the search results. So it is now giving me, it is returning me the results from the cache itself and not making the actual API call every time I am searching for the same keyword. Okay, so this is what I wanted to teach you. I think I have already spent 40-45 minutes on this problem statement, and I am continuously coding while explaining it to you. If you are able to do this much in your interview, I am 100% sure that interviewer cannot reject you. I have asked this same question exactly like how I have solved to so many candidates, and I would tell you the success ratio is just 20% or 10%. Trust me. People cannot solve this. And it looks easy, but it is tough when you are solving in an interview timed fashion. See, if I will ask you to implement this, you will take 2-3 hours, you will be able to develop it. But can you develop this in 45 minutes? Start your timer today and develop it, this much whatever I have done, and then come back and tell me. Because, a lot of candidates fail in this interview because they are not fast at coding. They get stuck into bugs and all that other stuff, right? So always be fluent with your coding. right? If you are giving your front-end interview, if you are preparing for your machine coding round of interview. So this is how I would have implemented in the interview, all right? If somebody would have asked me, and trust me, I have given so many machine coding round of interview, and lot of times I have got this same problem, and I have coded it before earlier, when I used to give interviews like 5-6 years back, and it is the same problem. This same problem earlier used to be asked by in pure HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now we have React. So now people are using React to solve the same problem, and they have increased the complexity also. Earlier, the same thing we used to do in HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Okay, so that's how things are. Technology is evolving. The questions are not. But, and it used to be, trust me, it used to be very, very tough to solve it in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You need to write a lot more code to handle all these scenarios. Okay, so this is what it is, my dear friends. Now, I have complemented it. See, there are a lot more things that you can add to this, right? In this problem statement itself. But I feel that, okay, if your interviewer is asking you, and if you are able to solve this much, you will 100% be passed. Okay, this is my guarantee, because only 10% or 5% people will only be able to do this much in 40-45 minutes, right? Without any errors. So please implement it. And I request you to please implement it on your system. Go to Code Sandbox, implement it yourself in a time manner. And I want you to comment down below that how did you like this problem, right? And how much time did it take you to solve it? Please write it down. Also, let me know if you want me to cover any other problem statement which I can solve for machine coding round of interview. I would love to create a series, right? I am creating a series of machine coding round of problems so that it helps you in your interview. And you should understand that what my thought process is while I am solving this problem. So that's all I want to do in this video. There are few more enhancements that the interviewer can ask you to make, maybe something like this, right? So if you hit the down arrow key, so it should switch over to these results, right? So something like this, maybe it is here, right? See this. If I hit the down arrow key, I am pressing the down arrow, up arrow. So it is taking me to different results, right? So interviewer can ask you to create that also. For that, again, you will need to handle the key listeners, right? Event listeners, key listeners. So you'll have to handle the event listener for up arrow, down arrow. So practice that also. Take it up, solve this question in 40-45 minutes, whatever I have done, right? Whatever I have written, try to write the same thing in 40-45 minutes. Once you are done with it, also do an enhancement to it. If you are pressing key down or key up, so it should switch between these results. Okay, please do that. Try to add some accessibility into it, right? There are so many things you can add into this problem statement, but these are the most common things which the interviewer will ask you. Okay, so I think I have done justice to this problem. Tell me if you were my interviewer, then you would have passed me in this interview or you would have failed me in this interview. Just tell me that in the comments. Tell me, suggest me topics that you want me to cover in upcoming videos on YouTube. You can tell me the machine coding round of interview questions also, which you are expecting from my side, or any other topic also, from JavaScript, from Node, from React, anything that you want me to cover in upcoming videos. I would love to make video on those topics. Okay, I'm back again on YouTube. Now I am regularly making videos. So please help me by liking this video, hitting that subscribe button, sharing this video to your friends and family. Please do that, right? That means a lot. Write a post on LinkedIn about this video, or maybe you can share your solution onto, or something that you have learned from this video. Share it on LinkedIn, on Twitter, or social media, on Instagram. That would mean a lot to me. Please talk about my channel, my YouTube videos with your friends and family. And the last thing which I want to say is, at least like this video before you end this video. Okay, so that's all from my side, my dear friends. See you in the next video with another question. And thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.